You know, a lot of people believe Leonard Nimoy was typecast as Spock in the myriad of Star Trek TV shows and movies he appeared in. But I remember him more because being 78 years old, I wasn't getting Star Trek first run. First time I came upon his acting style was, of all things, an episode of Columbo when he was playing a killer doctor who was trying to outfox Columbo in regards to a series of murders, and it's a very good performance. But Leonard Nimoy had an acting career before Star Trek, but we're going to talk mostly about his acting and also directing career after the main classic Star Trek. Now, following Star Trek, when it ended in '69, he immediately joined the cast of the spy series Mission Impossible, another Destiny production, which was seeking a replacement for the great Martin Landau. Nimoy was cast in the role of Paris, an IMF agent who was an ex-musician and makeup artist, an expert in the great Paris. He played the role during seasons 4 and 5 from '69 to '71. Didn't help the ratings too much, though. Nimoy had been strongly considered as part of the initial cast for the show, but remained on Star Trek. He co-starred with Yul Brynner and Richard Crenna in a very underrated Western movie called Catlau in '71. He also had roles in episodes of Rod Serling's The Night Gallery, as well as a directing stint. And of course, the Columbo, if you can find the movie, it's shown on Vision TV in Canada quite often. It's got Will Geer and a very strong supporting cast. He also appeared in TV films such as Assault on the Wayne, 1970, Baffle in '72, The Alpha Caper in '73, The Missing or Deadly in '74, Seizure, the story of Katie Morris in 1980, and Marco Polo. Of course, he played a villainous role in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the sequel, the rejig with Donald Sutherland. He also received an Emmy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor for the television film A Woman Called Golda in '82, for playing the role of Morris Meyerson, Golda Meir's husband, opposite Ingrid Bergman as Golda in her final role. Now, in '75, he filmed an opening introduction to Ripley's World, the Unexplained Museum, located at Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, California. In the late '70s, he hosted and narrated the TV series In Search Of, which investigated paranormal or unexplained events or subjects. Now, this was shown in CBC actually during the daytime hours as sort of like a replacement for TV movies. In 2000 and 2001, he hosted the CNBC TV series The Next Wave with Leonard Nimoy, which explored how e-businesses were integrating with technology and the internet. And again, he had a key character role in Philip Kaufman's remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Now, Nimoy also was recognized for his great stage work. He won acclaim for a series of stage roles, and in '71, he played the starring role of Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof, which toured for nearly 2 months. Having performed in the Yiddish theater as a young man, he said the part was like a homecoming for him because his parents, like Tevye, also came from a shtetl in Russia and could relate to the play when he saw him in it. Later that year, he starred as Arthur Goldman as the man in the glass booth at the Old Globe Theater in San Diego. Now, when he starred as Randall McMurphy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in '74, it was 1 year prior to its release as a feature film, with Jack Nicholson in the same role. During the run of the play, Nimoy took over as director and wanted his character to be rough and tough, and insisted on having tattoos. The costumer for the show, Sharon White, was amused. That was sort of an intimate thing. Here I am with Mr. Spock, for God's sake, and I'm painting pictures on his arms. Now, in '75, Nimoy toured with and played a title role in the Royal Shakespeare Company's Sherlock Holmes. A number of authors had perceived parallels between the rational Holmes and the character of Spock, and it became a running theme in Star Trek fan clubs. Star Trek writer Nicholas Meyer said the link between Spock and Holmes was obvious to everyone. And of course, Data playing Sherlock Holmes in the key Star Trek Next Generation episodes kept that tradition going, and Data and Spock had a good relationship on the show. Now, Meyer gives a few examples, including a scene in Star Trek VI, The Underscout Country, in which Spock quotes directly from a Doyle book and credits Holmes as a forefather to the logic he was espousing. In addition, the connection was applied again in Star Trek The Next Generation, which paid both homage to Holmes and Spock. By '77, when Nimoy played Martin Dessart in Equus on Broadway, he had played 13 important lead roles in 27 cities, including Tevye, Malvolio in Twelfth Night, and Randall McMurphy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. In '81, Nimoy starred in Vincent, a one-man show which he wrote and published as a book in '84. The audio recording of the play is available on DVD under the title Van Gogh Revisited. It was based on the life of artist Vincent van Gogh, in which Nimoy played Van Gogh's brother Theo. Other plays included Oliver at the Melody Top Theater in Milwaukee, Sims Rim's Revue opposite Sandy Dennis in Florida, Full Circle with B.B. Anderson on Broadway and in Washington, D.C. He was also in Camelot, The King and I, Caligula, The Four Poster, and My Fair Lady. Now, after Paramount agreed to settle a lawsuit by Nimoy for Star Trek merchandise royalties, he did take up Star Trek again in the motion picture, the first in the Star Trek film series. By '86, he had earned more than $500,000 in royalties. Now, as a voice actor, he did quite a bit of work in the '70s. In '75, Nimoy's renditions of Ray Bradbury's There Will Come Soft Rains and Usher 2, both from the Martian Chronicles, 1950, were released on Catamount Records. During 1980, Nimoy hosted the Friday Adventure Night segment of the radio drama series Mutual Radio Theater, heard via the Mutual Broadcasting System. Now, in '86, he lent his voice to the '86 cartoon movie, Transformers the movie, for the character Galvatron. Now, he also did a whole bunch of music through the years. A very, very strong photographer. His interest in photography began in childhood, and for the rest of his life, he owned a camera that he had rebuilt at the age of 13. During the '70s, he studied photography at the University of California, Las Vegas. His photography studies at UCLA occurred after Star Trek and Mission Impossible, while he was seriously considering changing careers. His work has been exhibited at our R. Mitchelson Galleries in Northampton, Massachusetts, and the Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art. Now, directorial debut, of course, was Death on a Barge in '73, involving a vampire on the barge. In the early '80s, he also resumed directing consistently, including TV and film. I think he did it at A.J. Hooker. I could be wrong here. Now, the first book was his autobiography, I Am Not Spock, was a bit controversial, as many fans incorrectly assumed Nimoy was distancing himself from the Spock character. He was also going through alcoholism at the time. In the book, Nimoy conducts dialogues between himself and Spock. The contents of the first autobiography all touched on a self-proclaimed identity crisis that seemed to haunt Nimoy throughout his career. It also related to an apparent love and hate relationship with the character of Spock and the Star Trek franchise. I went through a definite identity crisis. The question was whether to embrace Mr. Spock or to fight the onslaught of public interest. I realize now that I really had no choice in the matter. Spock and Star Trek were very much alive, and there wasn't anything that I could do to change that. Now, we know that the Spock character got the most of the critical acclaim on Star Trek. I think Nimoy was nominated for, 3 Best Supporting Actor, Drama Actor Emmys. Now, the second volume, called I Am Spock, he basically said he had revised his view on himself and communicates that he's finally realized the years of portraying the Spock character had led to a much greater identification between the fictional character and himself. Now, music. Now, in December '66, when it became apparent the original Star Trek was developing a strong following in spite of the low Nielsen ratings, Dot Records approached the producers of the show. The result was the signing of Nimoy to that label. Dot Records was a subsidiary of Paramount, and both Paramount and Desilu, the studio producing Star Trek, were acquired by Gulf and Western. First Paramount in '66 and then Desilu in '67. So after the merger of the two companies, he wound up working for Paramount both as an actor from '66 to '71 and singer from '67 to '70. During 2 television series, Star Trek and Mission Impossible, and 5 albums. He also later recorded a few spoken word albums and contributed narration to albums such as Whales Alive. Now, he also had some greater success, of course, helping out with the Bangles and their song Going Down to Liverpool, and he also appeared in a Bruno Mars video for the Lazy Song. Now, the Leonard Nimoy discography is very, very specific. The infamous Leonard Nimoy presents Mr. Spock Music from Outer Space, '67. 2 Sides of Leonard Nimoy, The Way I Feel, Dot Again. The Touch of Leonard Nimoy, '69. And The New World of Leonard Nimoy, Dot Again in 1970. Spoken word albums in the '70s, including The Martial Chronicles, The Illustrated Man, War of the Worlds, Green Hills of Earth, and of course later on The Mysterious Golem. Singles, 45s, The Ballad of Bilbo Baggins, Back with Cotton Candy, theme from Star Trek, Visit to a Sad Planet, I'd Love Making Love to You, and Please Don't Try to Change My Mind, Concealum, Here We Go Around Again, The Sun Also Rise, Time to Get It Together, and Outer Space in Her Mind. And of course, he released a hard-to-find microcassette called Leonard Nimoy Microcassette, release date unknown, and the compilations of all this was, of course, backed by Holiological Revolo Records. Now, the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins basically is what it's think like. It's telling the adventures of J.R.R. Tolkien's 37 novel, The Hobbit. It was featured on a 68 album, Two Sides of Leonard Nimoy, the second of Nimoy's albums on Dot Records. When the single was originally released, he lip-synced to the recording during a guest appearance on a 67 episode of Malibu U, a short-lived variety TV series. The segment survives as a music video and shows Nimoy wearing his Star Trek hairstyle as the series was amidst the production of his second season at the time, and a group of color-coordinated young men, all wearing plastic pointed ears, presumably like Vulcans, as hobbits only had slightly pointed ears in Tolkien's writing. Since the discovery of the BBC documentary Funk Me Up Scotty and propagation over the internet, it has been treated example of 60s camp. An excerpt from the musical numbers, including the documentaries Ringers, Lord of the Fans, about the Lord of the Rings fandom, and For the Love of Spock. It was also, again, appeared on Holiological. So, Leonard Nimoy, not just Spock. He is Spock. He is not Spock. But, like, what he's done. And the Columbo episode is just completely, he's just evil as a day is long. He can play very evil. And ironically, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a true movie. I think under the Columbo, what do you call the rotating, which was part of, I think, Night Gallery as well, the rotation on the evening. It's only 72 minutes, but when he kills a major character by chloroforming him and injecting it with drugs, it's pretty freaky. And like I said, Will Geer is a good, battle of the wits in the show. Is not that him and Will Geer had a lot of negative scenes, but if you can find it on Vision TV in Canada, it's quite interesting. They show a lot of the early Columbo repeats from the pilot episode onwards, and of course the Lawrence Harvey chess episode, which is very psychedelic. So Leonard Nimoy, in my personal opinion, he's more talented than William Shatner. That's just my opinion, but it works with Leonard Nimoy because everything is genuine. So if you like what you're doing with our Star Trek vintage tributes, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share.